Everyone. My name is Paul Shipway, your 2024-2025 AMCTO President and the General Manager of Strategic Initiatives and Innovation with Middlesex County. I'm excited to continue our Municipal Monitor Extra, our Q4 issue on the challenges of the role of the Chief Administrative Officer and City Manager. Today, I'm joined by Stacy Hushion from Strategy Corp. During her time at Strategy Corp, she has assisted dozens of Ontario municipalities on a range of strategic topics, combining evidence-based analysis with political acuity and strategic thinking to achieve consensus and meet client objectives. Welcome, Stacy, and thank you for speaking with me today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Before we jump right into the article, which I know everyone's excited to hear about, could you just tell us a little bit more about Strategy Corp?
Yeah, so I've been with Strategy Corp for almost 8 years. And prior to that, I was actually inside municipal government at the City of Toronto. And Strategy Corp is a kind of chameleon consulting firm. We have three main lines of practice: our communications practice, management consulting, and public affairs. We also have a municipal services practice that works with municipalities across Ontario, some in the United States as well, and a couple in different parts of Canada on a variety of projects from strategic planning, service delivery reviews, organizational reviews, long term financial planning, you name it, we've done it, we do it. But one of our passions through our municipal practice is our annual CAO survey, which is coming up next year on its 10th iteration.
For me, it's funny to ask to say a bit about Strategy Corp because Strategy Corp is so synonymous with the municipal sector and obviously has worked closely with AMCTO for a number of years. So thank you again for your time. I know personally I enjoy the survey and the findings every year, and I can't wait to dive in. So let's not wait any longer. Given the increasing complexity of the role of the CAO, what skills or competencies do you see as becoming non-negotiable for future municipal leaders?
So, as I mentioned, we're coming up on the 10th iteration of the survey in 2026. And what's been really interesting has been to see the way, some of what we hear from CAOs every year stays the same and some of it evolves. And one of the ways that I think I've really seen it evolve over the years has been kind of a shift in terms of those core skills for municipal leaders from what we might consider hard skills, right? And kind of the expertise in a certain subject matter area to what is sometimes, I think, rather dismissively called soft skills. So things like political acuity, leadership, empathy. And I think one of the things we really noticed with our survey this year was CAOs turning a bit introspective, let's say, where they're really starting to think about, how can I best lead this organization? How can I inspire and motivate my team? How can I support council in achieving their objectives? How can I think about how we can be more efficient, more effective in a climate that is, increasingly more challenging? And I'd say, CAOs, those critical skills around not just being managers, but around being leaders. And I know AMCTO talks a lot about that shift and what is involved in being a true leader. I think that is what is differentiating kind of the CAOs of today from the CAOs of maybe, decades and decades ago. You just can't get by on kind of the normal skills that you might have in people management. It really is taking it to another level now. And that's in part because of just what we're seeing. The scope of the role of the CAO is more challenging, and so, you're seeing that reflected back into what you need. What are those core competencies in order to do a great job?
That's great. And it actually transitions to the next question I was very curious about. How do you think those municipal leadership roles differ in challenges compared to other levels of government as we continue to evolve within this, public sector?
So any course in municipal public administration, any conference you go to about municipalities will always talk about how local government is closest to the people. And it's true. I think that is one of the differentiating factors, even geographically. Your town hall, city hall, municipal offices are situated in those communities that you serve. You can't just walk into Queen's Park because you've got a quick little complaint. And so I think that's what really distinguishes local government, that level of accessibility, that closeness to the people that are being served by the municipality. And I would characterize that both as a blessing, but also as a curse because on the one hand that means that local government can be more responsive to the needs that it's seeing in the community, adjust programs and services as needed based on changing community needs, evolving demographics, external factors like economic changes or social evolutions. And so, that's one way that it can be really beneficial to be that close to the people. But on the other hand, the curse side of it is that you are that accessible. And that means that, ordinary people come to their local government representatives, they go to town hall, sometimes with requests that aren't really things that municipalities deal with. And so I think that is one of the core challenges is that, members of the public, because they know who their local representatives are, because you're so accessible to them, that they want to go to you for everything. And I think that's one of the challenges. They want to go to you for things about school or healthcare, those areas that are not within the municipality's, jurisdiction in terms of what it directly delivers, invests in, or regulates. So I think that's definitely a challenge. And coupled with that is the fact that they expect you to do something about it, and in some cases you can't. And so I think that that element of being closest to the people is really what distinguishes municipalities, for better or for worse.
That's wonderful. I know, like on the ground, we hear from our membership that they take great pride in being able to make a difference to implement those policies and see those changes in action. So, great to see that observation. And I would second that. AMCTO was recently at Queen's Park for a delegation with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And I think we were 45 minutes to get through security before we were able to get in. So,
Exactly.
great point. Within the article, you highlighted recruitment and retention as a top concern. How can municipalities better compete with the private sector and other public institutions to attract that top talent going forward?
So the easiest answer, and maybe the answer that you'll hear most often, and even CAOs told us this too, is compensation. So ultimately, councils are going to need to decide whether they want to lag or lead the market in terms of how they compensate their staff, because certainly that is an important driver for many staff as they think about their career opportunities, where they want to go, what they want to do. And lots of administrations and councils are thinking about this right now. But, the more difficult answer is everything outside of that, everything beyond compensation that makes a job what it is, thinking about the culture, thinking about the working environment, all of those things that may be non monetary, but are critical to defining the employee experience. And municipalities can play a role in helping to define what that looks like. And so we are seeing, CAOs in particular think about, well, how can I better grow my people? What types of opportunities can we offer them to help meet their needs? You're also seeing municipalities start to think a little bit more about what they can offer prospective candidates versus, job ads are always written about what they expect from the candidate, what they need from the candidate. But now you're seeing a bit of a shift where not just municipalities, but employers are thinking about, okay, well, we actually need to set out what an employee would get from us. What can we offer them that distinguishes us? What makes it special to work here and not, 5 kilometers away in the next municipality? So you're seeing, I'd say, a lot more consideration about of culture, for example, of employee or employer brand, thinking about, what are those things that differentiate us from all of our neighboring municipalities. And I think a lot of municipal associations are thinking about this too, including AMCTO, AMO as well, the Ontario Human Resources, Municipal Human Resources Association. There's an association, I think, for every possible position in municipal government, which is exciting. And I think one of the key things that all of these different associations and sector professionals are starting to think about is public education, because one of the biggest gaps, we see this all the time in our work, I'm sure you do too, it's just that most folks don't know what municipalities are responsible and what municipalities do. So if you don't know what local government does, how could you possibly have a full understanding of the breadth of the opportunities for careers within municipal government? And so I think what we're seeing and what associations are doing is starting to get back out into the community, try to unpack that toolbox of strategies in terms of how to recruit, how to retain, how to, get back into schools, early education, high schools, post-secondary institutions to try to foster that talent pipeline early and often. So I think it's really exciting what's happening right now on the retention and recruitment side. And I'm excited as well to see what municipalities come up with and how they're going to change what we think municipal employment is all about.
That part of the research and article that really piqued my interest was the common theme to our previous interview with Dr. Siegel, where we talked about quality of place from a external municipal looking perspective, and now we're talking about quality of place internally for our employees. And obviously AMCTO is a big player in that role, and I think something I'd like to point out, which I think dovetails nicely, is obviously the return of the AMCTO my tax internship program. We've heard from our members for a very long time they wanted to see the internship program come back. There's a lot of AMCTO internship members at prominent roles throughout the municipal sector in Ontario right now. So we're very excited about that, and more details are available on the website. And we think that'll be a great opportunity to bridge the gap between post-secondary research and municipalities to try to strengthen that inflow of recruits into the future. So thank you for pointing that out. We're very excited about that.
That's great.
Another one that we have a bit of experience on as well that the research and article touch on, how has the implementation of strong mayor powers affected the role of the CAO and the city manager based on your findings?
So from our perspective, and this is the second or third year we asked the question, uh, and from our perspective, the results and the reactions continue to be mixed overall. I would say last year was really the first full year, if we think about the implementation of strong mayor powers to that broader number of municipalities, and in terms of going through a full strong mayor budget process. And all in all, we heard that the strong mayor powers maybe haven't been the affront to the democratic process that so many of us, working in or with the sector thought they were going to be. And, in a couple cases, we heard from CAOs who actually found the powers to be beneficial as they looked to go through certain processes or requirements. And for a couple of CAOs, I shouldn't say a lot, it helped simplify some of the politics, which kind of sounds the opposite of what you might expect. But for example, we heard from one CAO who mentioned that the budget process was a lot simpler because the political interface was so much simpler. So you only had to work with the mayor on defining the parameters of the budget and gaining approval versus having to negotiate or work with all of council to try to move the budget forward. But we also heard through the interviews and, as we were conducting the survey of troubling cases where CAOs were let go from their position through the use of strong mayor powers. And certainly, I'd say the majority of CAOs that we spoke to still hold very serious concerns about the potential impact of strong mayor powers on the objectivity of the professional public service, on their neutrality, which is one of the hallmarks of municipal government and has been for nearly 2 centuries. So I think there remains some pretty strong concerns within municipal leaders. And what's interesting is I've had a chance to review AMCTO's research report, and the findings of our report, which is more qualitative in nature based on interviews with CAOs, and AMCTO's report, which really crunches the numbers in terms of how strong mayor powers have been used or in some cases not used. I think we're seeing the same types of things. And I think in terms of the path forward, all of the evidence suggests that we should tread with some caution.
Thank you for the shout out on our research. I know our team and our members are very proud of that. And I'd like to remind the rest of our members that those resources remain available for members on the AMCTO website. So thank you very much for that. And I guess with that, we'll be respectful of your time. If there's one message you'd like municipal leaders to take away from your findings, what would it be?
Well, like I said, we're almost 10 years of the report, so there's a million messages I could share. But I think maybe the biggest message and one that's remained consistent, and part of the reason we do the survey is that CAOs are not alone. what's that saying? There's comfort in misery. So there's that. But let's think about it differently. There's real solidarity among senior municipal leaders in terms of the challenges they're facing in their roles as managers, CAOs, senior leaders, but also in terms of the challenges that they might be seeing in their communities and need to be responsive to in the current moment. So, I actually think the question really is, what can municipal leaders learn from each other in terms of how to navigate the age old problems of municipal government? Every year our survey talks about the perennial challenges of municipal financial sustainability. That's not going away. What about some of these, the newer challenges that have grown in scale over time, thinking about the intersection of the housing crisis, homelessness, mental health, and substance use? How can CAOs come together, connect with each other to not only find comfort in the challenges, to not only share, about what they're experiencing, but also to learn from each other in terms of potential solutions or strategies to help navigate some of these issues, some of which, as I've said, are never going away, and some of which, are they're facing a particularly urgent or immediate need around. And I think, one of the benefits, and we find this in our work all the time in projects that we do with municipalities, is that senior leaders, the idea of finding solace with other leaders is so powerful. That ability to come together, network with each other, learn from each other is critical. And it actually ties back up to, what I said at the outset around some of those soft skills. That's one way to cultivate those skills is just through connecting with each other.
Wonderful, and sort of a core tenet of AMCTO as being, Ontario's largest municipal professional association, where municipal managers, chief administrative officers, city managers, leaders, and every staff member in between can come together and be part of this big community that we are. So, very well said. And again, thank you so much for sharing your research and insights with us. For those watching, if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to read Stacy's and other great articles in the 2024 Monitor Q4 edition, which is available and out now. Thank you for everyone watching. Please stay tuned for more municipal monitors to come. For those of you who may be interested in contributing to future editions, please visit the Municipal Monitor page on the AMCTO website for more information. Thank you again for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you next time.